Every Kenyan taxpayer owes China 7,500 Kenyan shillings because of this train. Every hospital bed that lacks medicine, every school without books, every road left unpaved, they all compete for funding with this, Kenya's most expensive mistake. This is a story of how Kenya mortgaged its future for a railway and how billions of shillings simply disappeared. Imagine you're selling someone their dream house. Beautiful pictures, amazing promises, and a price that seems too good to be true. Now, imagine that house costs 327 billion Kenyan shillings and the buyer is an entire nation. That's essentially what happened in 2014 when China came knocking on Kenya's door with a proposal. We will build you Africa's most modern railway. It will transform your economy. Trust us. President Kenyatta called it a transformational project. The media called it visionary. Critics, well, we'll get to that. But here is what's interesting. From day one, this wasn't a normal infrastructure deal. Kenya didn't put the project out for international tender. There was no competitive bidding. China Exim Bank would fund it. Chinese companies would build it. Chinese workers would run it. It was a packaged deal. Take it or leave it. Kenya took it.
Said that after 2013, you left the stage.
After 2013, it came to my attention. At that time, it became a project that was now not worth 55 billion between Mombasa and Malaba, but 300 plus billion just from Mombasa to Nairobi. And I said, this does not make sense to me. If this does not make sense.
Every good fraud investigation starts with following the money. And in the SGR case, following the money leads to some very strange places. First stop, the contracts.
Sasa ile tulikuwa tunatoka kwa serikali, tulikuwa tumepeana kandarasi. Wakaenda wakafuatilia hiyo kandarasi waka-advertise tena. Wakapeana kwa yule same contractor.
For 6 years, the Kenyan government refused to show its own citizens what they had signed. 6 years. Think about that. You are paying for something, but you're not allowed to see the receipt. When activists took the government to court demanding transparency, they were told the contracts were commercially sensitive. When the journalists filed freedom of information requests, they were denied. When Parliament tried to scrutinize the deals, they were shown redacted documents with more black ink than text. What were they hiding? In February 2024, we got our answer. Former government auditor Bernard Mushere dropped a bombshell. Kenya may have overpaid by 777 billion Kenyan shillings. To put that into perspective, Kenya's entire annual health budget is about 130 billion Kenyan shillings. The overpayment alone could have funded healthcare for 6 years. So where did the 777 billion Kenyan shillings go to? According to Mushere's analysis, it vanished into a web of inflated costs, questionable invoices, and phantom expenses. Let's break this down. The land grab. Officials allegedly inflated land compensation costs by 8 billion Kenyan shillings. Fake documents, non-existent plots, compensation paid to dead people. Yes. Dead people were apparently getting paid for land they couldn't possibly own. The railway required Chinese materials, Chinese standards, Chinese everything. But here is the real kicker. Those materials were priced far above market sales.
The devil was in the detail. The contract quotes outrageously high figures for even simple tasks like landscaping. The document shows that grass planted along the railway stations was procured at a cost of 1 billion shillings. Those who signed on behalf of Kenya government agreed to the purchase of 112 portable radios at approximately 1.4 million shillings and 45 buses to shuttle workers at 25 million shillings each. The ideal market price would be about 10 million shillings a bus. 12 minibuses were bought at 12 million shillings each. Welding machines that actually cost 25,000 shillings in the market were bought at 442,872 shillings. The chief engineers enjoyed 5 million shillings worth of airtime for 3 months, with the government of Kenya spending top dollar on expensive furniture worth 11,500,000 for each one of them. Loudspeakers were bought at 28,800 shillings.
Steel that would have costed 1x was built at 3x. Concrete became concrete gold. Remember those 30,000 jobs promised to Kenyans? Most of the actual construction was done by Chinese workers, flown in specifically for the project. The promised employment benefits, another mirage. While officials celebrated ribbon-cutting ceremonies, ordinary Kenyans were unknowingly signing up for decades of debt. Every newborn baby in Kenya now owes China money because of this railway. Every school child will still be paying for it even when they become grandparents. But the biggest scandal was still hidden in those secret contracts. In December 2018, the truth began to leak out like water through a cracked dam. Kenya had used its crown jewel, the port of Mombasa, as collateral for the Chinese loans. Think about what that means. The port of Mombasa handles 90% of East Africa's trade. It's worth billions of dollars. It's Kenya's economic lifeline, and Kenya bet it all on a train. The government denied it, of course.
You want a copy of the contract? My friend, I'll get it to you tomorrow.
So their commercial interests protected by Chinese rule of law. So I cannot say we agree or disagree, disclosure these kind of agreements.
Fake news, they said. Malicious propaganda. But the documents don't lie. The Port Authority had already guaranteed the loans, giving China claim to port assets if Kenya defaulted. This wasn't just about Kenya anymore. Uganda, Rwanda, South Sudan, Democratic Republic of the Congo all depend on Mombasa's port for their imports and exports. Kenya had potentially gambled away the entire region's economic future. And for what? A railway that was already hemorrhaging money. Let's talk about Mary Wanjiku. She's a nurse at Kenyatta Hospital. Every day, she watches patients suffer because there are not enough medicine, enough beds, enough equipment. The hospital budget request was cut again this year. No money, the government said. Meanwhile, Kenya pays China $315 million every year for the SGR. That's nearly 40 billion Kenyan shillings annually. Enough to fully fund healthcare for 3 counties. Or consider Mr. John Juma, a teacher in Machakos County. His school has no computers, no science lab, and students sit on the floor because there aren't enough desks. The Education Ministry's budget also cut. No budget, the government explained. But the SGR debt payments, those are never late, never reduced, never questioned. This is the real cost of corruption. It's not just about missing millions, it's about missing opportunities, missing medicine, missing futures. Every shilling stolen from the SGR is a shilling not spent on the things Kenyans actually need. The SGR project isn't just a transport project, it's a cautionary tale about what happens when government operates in shadows, when citizens are denied transparency, and when nation pride overrides financial prudence. Every day, the Madaraka Express carries passengers between Mombasa and Nairobi. It's comfortable, punctual, modern. Passengers post selfies on social media praising the smooth journey. but they are riding on borrowed time with borrowed money at borrowed cost. The real questions aren't about trains. They're about accountability, about transparency, about whether a government can mortgage its people's future without their consent. Who authorized the payments? Who signed the secret clauses? Who decided that Mombasa Port was acceptable collateral? And why are all the people responsible still walking free while Kenya sinks deeper into debt? These questions demand answers. The Kenyan people deserve the truth. All of it. Because until we know how we lost these billions, we can't prevent losing more. The train may reach its destination on time, but Kenya's journey to accountability has barely begun.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Eric Omondi hapa, president of Comedy Africa.
Yo, this is Kushman, Pedi wa Magengi.
Mambo vipi watu wangu wa Nairobi na Kenya mzima?
Subscribe
Kwa stories za nini?
254
Across all social media platforms.
Hapana kuchanganya. Na huyo ndo Dori, subscribe right now. Finya sahi. Sa wewe finya.